The Dream World of Mario and Luigi Dream Team has some really cool Luiginary works or abilities that overshadow the one in the real world. And if you haven't actually seen the real world ability ranking, I'll have an info card up there. And also, I don't think actually people got the notification for it, so might as well check it out if you haven't seen it yet, because this is kind of a sequel. But the Dream World abilities, the only ones that were a bit confusing to rank was the Luiginary copies, where you just had to split into the stack, the cone, or the ball. But for this video, I just put it into 3 segments, having the stack, the ball, and the cone as different entries. I didn't rank their individual abilities, because it's weird, because I could maybe rank the cone's jump, but I really shouldn't rank the stack's jump. So it was a bit odd, so I just made it into 3 segments. But other than that, don't forget to subscribe and like the video, or I will make copies of Elder Princess Shroob and make sure they grow huge and then send them right to your house to destroy it. But other than that, let's just get started. The Luiginary cylinder, or what I'm gonna call it, the Luiginary screw, is not fun, and it's actually very infuriating to use. Here's the thing about the Luiginary screw. What you do with it is that you have to spin Luigi's nose in the real world, and then it spins in the dream world. The problem with this is that you have to release Mario to actually get him off. The problem is that the faster you go, the harder it is to actually go in the right direction. But you need speed to actually go far enough. So either you have to go slow enough that you can actually go past, but fast enough that you can actually get to where you need to go. But if you go too fast sometimes, then you mess up anyway. And that's really shown with the Dream Point, with the Dream Stone. Because it's not fun to use this thing, because that one room that I actually am showing in the footage right now, you have to get an attack piece, you have to go to 3 different rooms, and you have to actually do 2 successfully before you actually complete it correctly. So it's not fun to use, and it actually controls pretty horribly. And the thing about it is that it's not necessary for this to actually be in the dream world. And I know some of the dreamy things are unique, which is why I at least put them higher. It actually altered the experience. But the Luiginary cylinder doesn't actually do that for me. It just gets me annoyed at the place, which is not what you want to do. The Luiginary stash tree is okay in concept, but it's not great because of execution reasons. And obviously, all it really does is picks up Mario and then launches him, which is a good thing for it being the first Luiginary that you actually learn. But here's the thing about this. If you miss, it's not fun. It's actually pretty annoying if you miss, and it's not very consistent if you actually make it or not. And I think that is definitely just a product of me being really bad at using the stash tree. So I do like that you don't actually use it that much in the game after you get out of Mush Rise Park, but it's still not fun when you're there, and just using it to get really precise locations is not really that fun. I don't think it's really bad. I do think that I could have put it a bit higher, but I don't really find anything that's really that enjoyable about this thing. It's not very unique. It doesn't really enhance the Dream World experience. Even though stuff that I do think that placed higher I like less, at least it enhanced that this place is the Dream World and it can get really messed up by what you do in the real world. So the Luiginary stash tree is just really not that unique or really that creative to be in the Dream World. I like exactly half of the Luiginary ice, and that's really weird to say because it's not really that fun to use. It's at least a unique concept. This doesn't actually enhance the Dream World experience. It does make you think that this can change rapidly in the dream, which is pretty nice. But there's one phase with the ice, and then there's one phase without the ice. And I'm pretty sure if you know from my Dream Point ranking that I do not like the ice physics in this game. It's actually pretty annoying and it's not fun. So every single opportunity I get to get rid of the ice physics, it's pretty nice. But most of the time you actually have to have them on. So because of that, it definitely makes the Dream Point worse, and it does obviously hinder my experience with the Luiginary Ice. especially because this is the only time you actually use it. You only use it once, which isn't really a bad thing because I don't really like this thing that much, but I do like it more than Luigiary Stash Tree because it does actually enhance the Dream World experience. And that's really the only reason why, even though I probably like this thing a bit less. The Luigiary Gravity leads to some unique puzzles, don't get me wrong, but I do think that the Luigiary Gravity doesn't really have anything that's too unique about it. Obviously, it enhances the dream experience because it literally flips you on where you are. Well, it doesn't completely flip it, but it definitely makes it a bit more interesting because you're going on all four sides. You're walking on walls, you're walking on ceilings, but I do think that a different ability does that better, even though you're not really on walls with that one, but we'll talk about that one a bit later. For this one, it's not great. I do think that there is some good puzzles with it, but I feel like it could have been strongerly used. That was a great word, strongerly. But in reality, it's just not that fun. I feel like they could have just done more with it, but they didn't. And that's really because they didn't really use this thing that much, unlike the Sneeze Wind. So I think that it definitely deserves to be number 8, but not any higher. The Luigiary Propeller is a bit better than Luigiary Gravity, where I think that they used it better, where they didn't just make you go forward faster and obviously make it harder to get to where the propellers are, but they actually made you go higher, which obviously utilizes it a bit more. But I do think, again, I feel like they could have just used it to more interesting ways. Obviously, there is some unique stuff about it. Obviously, I mentioned the different directions that the propellers shoot you, but something else is using the propellers to actually gain momentum to actually push huge boxes. That's pretty cool. But, more. I wanted more with this thing, but I do think I forgive it a bit more because it is basically at the end of the game when you do actually learn this thing. So I'll cut it a bit of slack, but I'll probably cut it a bit more slack than the thing that's above this item thing. This is a weird one to say, but the Luigiary Anti-Gravity is honestly really fun to use, but again, I think it could have been utilized more, but it's just so fun to fly around. You're literally just swimming in the air, and I feel like this is what the Luigiary Gravity could have been, but I feel like the Luigiary Anti-Gravity uses it better, and I think that's just because the swimming mechanics are risk versus reward, where you can move slowly, but it'll be more accurate, but you can actually move faster, and it's less accurate, but it's really fast and fun. The difference between me mentioning that this is fast between the cylinder and the anti-gravity is that it's actually fun to go fast, unlike with the Luigiary cylinder, where it's still annoying to actually use the thing. This thing just leads to some really fun stuff, with red coins just traveling around this place in Neo Bowser Castle. It's just a fun thing to use, which is just why it's number 6, but I don't think it could have reached the top 5, because the top 5 are just easily the best. Before I talk about why I actually like the Luigiary Sneeze Wind, I just gotta get the negative right out of the way. I don't think that this really enhances the dream actual aspect of this place. It's just a sneeze wind, it's just a ton of wind, which, it's better than the Luigiary Stash Tree, but I don't think that it's better than stuff like the anti-gravity or the propeller. So, that's obviously the biggest negative, but here's the thing about the Luigiary Sneeze Wind. It gives the best puzzles in the entire dream world, because it's used so much that it does become a bit redundant, but that's not a problem for me because I actually really like this thing. But these puzzles are just so creative, and they have to do a ton of stuff with it because how much they use it. And I do think that they really do pass, and that's probably why I have it at number 5. But honestly, I can't put it at the top 4 because it doesn't feel like that it's a good ability for the dream world. It feels like just a great ability in general, but for the dream world, it doesn't feel like it should be in the top 3. We have our first of the 3 Luigiary copies. So, The Illusionary Cone is not great. I think the main reason for it is its two abilities are boring or just not that great to use. Let's start with the jump, which is the better of the two abilities. If you're really good at spamming the B button, you could basically get infinite distance with this thing, which is pretty nice, and it's pretty funny to just get that much distance. But it's not great. Obviously the slow falling's nice, but it's not very practical as a jump. I honestly just switched to the Illusionary Stack just to jump normally. So that's not great. The movement isn't obviously that great. Now, the huge Typhoon that they can create is probably my least favorite ability that the Illusionary copies actually have. Because, why would you use this thing? Now, obviously it's useful in some scenarios, but it's not really that fun to use, even though I will admit it does look cool. And also, if you use this on the wrong thing, then your frame rate from your 3DS can drop significantly. And it's noticeable. Even from someone that doesn't really pay attention to that stuff notices it. Which is not a good thing for something that really doesn't drop frame rates at all. It really shouldn't. So something like that ability dropping frame rates is really stupid, and it shouldn't even be there. So in total, I don't really like the movement of this thing. The jump's a bit annoying. I don't really like the secondary ability, but I will say that getting infinite distance with the Illusionary Cone definitely puts it at number 4, because that's really beneficial. The Illusionary Stack is so basic, but it works, because the abilities that it has are beneficial and a bit fun. Now, obviously the movement of the Illusionary Stack is pretty nice. It's not the best base movement that you can do, but it's definitely nice when you compare it to the Illusionary Cone. Then you have its jump, which its normal jump is really good, obviously. It's the best jump that you have. But then you have its ground pound, which is pretty satisfying to pull off because, well, first off, Luigi's hat in the real world just falls down, which is pretty funny. And it just makes this thud noise that's really cool. But it also destroys rock, which is pretty nice, and it also sometimes breaks crates and destroys enemies. Also, just walking around and just defeating enemies, just randomly just knocking them off screen is pretty funny. But then you have his charge jump, where either you have to go down, shrink a bit, and then you launch up, or you just go out and cancel. First things first, I really like that if you actually spawn in the Illusionary copies, your first thing I will go to is the Illusionary Stack. But it actually crouches you down. I'm so glad it just doesn't reset you, or it doesn't actually let you do it. So I'm actually really thankful of the ability. Also, it is kind of satisfying just jumping that high. So here's the thing about this ability. It's not the most fun, it's not the most unique, but at the end of the day, it controls well, and it's just fun to use this thing. And it's just very simple, and sometimes simple isn't bad. And in this scenario, simple is obviously a really good thing. The Illusionary Speedometer is probably my favorite, no, it absolutely is my favorite Illusionary ability that isn't a Illusionary copy. And straight up, it's because it's one of the most fun abilities in the Mario RPGs. Simply because, one, when you go fast, it's really exhilarating, and two, the music, when you speed it up, sounds really good. Especially because they picked Wakeport and Somnom Woods, where when they speed up the music, it sounds amazing. And we're actually just gonna switch to Somnom Woods right now. Come on. There we go. And also, I can say that when you're slow, it's not that great. I obviously think the music gets worse, and it is a bit disappointing when you actually lose your speed and you have to go back to normal, which it's obviously sad. But when you're using it, it's just so fun. And I mean, think about it. Look at the Bros Ball from Partners in Time. I love the Bros Ball because it's just so fun to roll around with Mario and Luigi. And speaking of a ball, while I don't think that the Illusionary Ball is as good as the Bros Ball, the Legionary Ball is just so fun to use. And I will say that its side abilities aren't really that great. The hook shot is okay. Obviously, you can't really jump with the Legionary Ball, so it's kind of a necessity. But the ball hammer, again, is just okay. It's not bad, obviously, but it is a bit annoying when you just, like, accidentally hit the wall that you're not really trying to do, and it just does nothing. It's kind of annoying when that happens. So, there is just small nitpicks about this ball, but the Legionary Ball, just moving around, is just amazing, and it's so fun to use. Every single time I get to use the Legionary copy thing, I always switch to the Legionary Ball, because it's just the most fun to roll around with. I'd rather use it than the Legionary Stack and the Legionary Cone. Obviously, I'd rather use the Legionary Stack to jump, but if I don't have to jump, I'm instantly going to the Legionary Ball. And I think it's just criminally underused, which is just disappointing. But I really like the segment in Dreams Deep where you just get to use this thing a decent amount of time, which is just really fun. That's the thing about this thing. This thing is fun. My favorite abilities in the Mario RPGs are fun to use. Thank you guys for watching this video. Obviously, if you stayed to the end of the video, you probably want to subscribe because, well, you probably enjoyed this video then. But obviously, you don't have to. I'm not going to force you to do it, but obviously, it just supports me without giving me money, right? Because I'm not monetized yet. Yeah, I don't know. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. My next video is probably going to be a video analysis video because I haven't done those in a bit. So, yeah.